Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk community. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that may be. Let's talk about us. Let's talk about us. Let's talk about us. Let's talk.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Let's Talk About It with me and you. Today, we have a special guest on, Pat Robinson from 94.7 The Block. Can you believe it? She's sitting right next to me. Hi, how are you, Pat?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here. It's a long time coming, but I made it.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Super excited.
So also, I would like the audience to know this is also being seen on our World Media Network.
Wonderful.
Okay?
All right.
So, Pat, let's get started. Where are you from and how did you get started in this wonderful business?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll give you a preview. So I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, and lived there for many years, but I'm a Queens resident now, so that's what matters. But how I got started in media is a very interesting story. My background when I grew up was really in math. And so I was really good at accounting. I was able to get my education really focusing around accounting. And I was working at a meat market when I was in my early 30s. And you remember the movie Rocky, where he would go in and have to walk past the dead slab?
Yes.
So my office, I had a job working in a meat market on 14th Street in Manhattan, and I would have to walk past dead carcass every day to go upstairs to do this accounting job.
Mm-hmm.
And in my 30s, I said, this cannot be life for me. This cannot be my career. And I got really frustrated. And way back then, when in the 30s, this is over 20 years ago, we didn't have as much use of the internet. So I decided to start looking for another job. So I just printed out my resume, probably about 100 copies of it, went on the internet, just mailed it out to a bunch of, we were using Craigslist back then. So that was, a way of mass mailing. And I just mailed out a bunch of resumes. And within about 3 months, no one was calling me. And I'm like, boy, I'm really frustrated because I needed to get out of this job. And then one day, a person called me and said, hey, my name is Mike Navarra. I received your resume, and I just want to let you know it's a really good resume, and I'm going to pass it on. We don't have a job, but I'm going to pass it on. Mm-hmm. The younger version of Pat Robinson said, who the H-E-double hockey sticks are you, and why would you call me if you don't have a job, right? Because to me, that made no sense. And I was just frustrated. I'm like, okay, whatever, thank you. About a month later, someone else called me and said, hey, my name is Robert Finley. I got your resume from Mike Navarra, and I don't have a job, but I would really love to talk to you. Would you like to come in and talk to me? And so I'm like, not really, but okay, there's no job. He said, yeah, just come on in and talk to me. I got an impressive resume. And no one else was calling me, so I decided to go and have a conversation with this Robert Finley. I got to tell you, I had the poorest attitude ever on my way to this interview. So I go to this interview with no job, right? So I get to this building, I take the elevator up, and I come off the elevator, and I see MS Communications. And so I'm like, ma'am, I'm looking for a Robert Finley at MS Communications. And she said, no, you're in the right place. And I looked past her, and I saw all of these big logos, Hot 97, KISS FM, and CD 101.9. I said, this is where Robert Finley works? And she says, yeah, have a seat. I could not believe that the radio station had been calling me to say that they liked my resume. So at this point, I sit in the reception area. That poor attitude turned around really quickly because now it was time for me to sell myself. So I had an opportunity to interview Robert Finley, and I was so hungry to get inside. And I'm like, wow, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. And so he says, nice meeting you. I'll keep in touch if anything comes up. I went home. I emailed Robert Finley probably every 2 weeks. Did anything open? No. It took about 6 months, and he called me back, and he says, hey, Pat Robinson, do you remember me? I'm Robert Finley, and I have a job. And I said, I'll take it.
You didn't ask what it was.
I didn't know what it was. It could have been mailroom, anything. I didn't know what it was. I said, I'll take it, because all I knew is that if I could just get in that radio station, it was going to be all right. And so I took this job, and I was able to come in as an accounting clerk. The salary was acceptable because in my mind, where I was going into was so phenomenal. It meant so much in terms of culture, history, music. And then I was with all of these amazing people. So I took that job.
And you was doing math, something that you liked
I
to
was
do.
doing what I was good at, but in the radio station. And so I'll tell you how I evolved in the radio station. After year one, every year we have performance reviews. He sat down with me and he said, let's go over your performance. And it was great. It was like 99% perfect. And it was like, blah, 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 blah. And then at the last line, it says, and this is what changed my life. At the last line, it says, Patricia is great. The only limitation she has is that she does not have a degree. And the reason I didn't have a degree is because I got pregnant at 19 and I dropped out of college and I just worked until like my 30s. And so I took that paper home and my husband said, you should be happy. This is great. But all I could see was Patricia has this limitation. And so that troubled me. I cursed him out of my mind. That was the younger version of me. And within a few weeks, I decided that it was time for me to change that. And I went back to school at night to get my associate degree. Shamefully, I felt shame because I'm 30-something years old walking in school with like 19, 20-year-old college students.
But you didn't let that stop you.
I did not let it stop me. I didn't tell anybody I was going at the job. I went for the 2 years. I got the degree. I came back and I said, Robert, I want to show you something. I got my associates. It was important for me to remove what he said. He says, oh my goodness, I'm so proud of you, Pat. This is great, fantastic. And to be quite honest, I was very proud of myself.
Of course.
Right? And so I sat down and I'm like, okay, I'm good. This is working. I'm at par with everyone else. And then I turned around and I looked at the workforce and everyone had their bachelor's degree. So I said, I don't think I'm evenly keeled yet. And then two sides of me said, one said, don't worry about it. You did something. And then the other side said, you got to get up to par. So quietly again, I went back to school, directly right back. This time I was doing full time, 40 hours a week at night. So 40 hours working and 40. So I was burning like night all. And the 2 years after that, I came back to Robert and I said, you're not going to believe it. Here you go. He says, no way. Are you
Got your bachelor's.
I said, so now you can't talk to me about anything about a limitation, right? So I sat down, I'm feeling good about myself, and here comes that pesky feeling again. Pat, what would happen if you could pass everybody? And so the two sides of me were saying, girl, you tired, you need to take a break. And the other side was saying, I bet you could do it. So I went back again at night, 2 more years, and I got a master's. And I came back to him again, say, hey, I need to show you this. He says, this is next level, Pat. I said, yeah, it is. And also we have to have a different conversation because this position doesn't fit me anymore.
No. And money.
And money. So 6 years later, I'm sitting, because you told me it was a limitation, I needed to prove you wrong.
Yes.
And so I was able to demonstrate. I did it 6 years back to back, got a master's. I was more educated. I felt more confident about myself. And now it was time to have the conversation about money. And so I did that. I put together a presentation. I pitched a position which I thought that would be equivalent to my experience and my education, and it was rejected. They said, no, it doesn't work that way. I said, you sure? They said, no, Pat, we don't do that. And I said, okay. I pitched it to him and to the president. And I came back and I kind of rejiggered. I had a presentation kind of showing all of this, how I would do this position. And I wanted to make it this title at $90,000 because at the time I was probably about $50,000. And I pitched it again. And they came back really quick and said, listen, we told you no. This is not how this works. We don't do this. You can't just pitch a job and pull money out. I said, okay.
How did you feel?
I felt like, oh, they don't get it, but I do. So I went back again with this presentation. This is a true story. And I said, this time I'm going to take the presentation and I'm going to show them how much money I've saved them, because I was really good at work and saving money and doing additional jobs, and I could do the job of 2 people and they didn't have to pay the salary. So I put it all together and I pitched it again. I emailed it and I said, hey, please take a look at this because I think you're not understanding what needs to happen here. and it was radio silence for weeks. So now I'm sitting in my seat and I'm like, oh my goodness, I got 2 kids. I'm going to get fired. They're not saying anything. And after 3 weeks, they said, hey, we would like to meet with you. And we're going to go to this cafe down the block. So I'm saying to myself, they're going to fire me outside so I don't have to come back in the building and they don't have to escort me out. I was so stressed out. I
could imagine that. Yeah.
So I get to this cafe and I'm sitting there like, and they're like, listen, we told you that this was not something that you should do. We told you that that's not how this works, but you were persistent. And, while we understand you went to school and got your degrees, we applaud you for that. But this is not how this works. But after further consideration and looking at everything, we're going to go ahead and promote you and give you that title and that money.
Oh my God. Praise the Lord.
So when that happened, Pat was promoted. I think the title was Director of Personnel Administration at $90,000.
Oh, yeah.
And so when I broke that barrier, at that point, I knew that I could do anything else going forward.
And you have.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And then I successfully was able to continue to pitch other positions, and I worked my way all the way up to the first time that position existed, which was the Vice President of HR and Community Engagement after 20 years.
So now you had to hire everybody. Everybody had to go through basically you.
Yeah, so it was an HR role, and while we had our department team, we had our department heads, all of the recruiting, all of the job posting, interviewing, sourcing. And, we're talking about like 3 major radio stations in New York City at the highest point ever. There were thousands of people applying for jobs, thousands of people looking for internships. So the influx and the outcry from the outside was heavy. So to be a Black woman in that seat,
that's a powerful seat.
That was a powerful seat. But also to be a fair and balanced Black woman was in that seat. That was a powerful thing also. So my thing was, how do I give people the best opportunities? How do I show them the way that they can come in? And I did that through a myriad of ways. So if there were jobs open, I gave fair and equal opportunities. But I also, I brought in summer youth employment program, which I had to convince them the value of that program, because that's the program that gave me my start when I was 14. And so they were like, well, we don't want kids. I said, no, we want young adults to have an opportunity to sit with us, learn from us, and be incorporated in the workforce.
Learn the business.
Yes. Learn the business. And we had our summer youth employment mentees in there. They were in sales meetings. They were in marketing meetings. They were getting firsthand real life experience, and they were getting paid through the state. So once I did that, then I started opening up our mentorship, internship program. So it was a robust volume. And so my popularity happened not because I worked at these significant brands. It was because I was opening up all of these pathways, and the community started to recognize, wow, there is a way in. There is an opportunity to connect to these folks. It is not just a brand and a myth. There are people behind there who care.
And you was helping the summer youth program.
Yes.
So you was bringing in a whole bunch of different...
Tons of, and it wasn't just like one vendor, contractor. I worked with multiple colleges and schools, and the summer youth program, to this day, it is the nearest and dearest thing to my heart, because at 14 years old, I needed to help my mom, who at the time was separated, didn't have a lot of money, and couldn't afford a lot of anything. And so I said, Mom, I'm going to get a job, and I'm going to take care of myself, and I'm going to help you pay the NYNEX bill. I don't know, maybe I'm dating myself, but NYNEX used to be the old Verizon.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going to help you pay the NYNEX telephone bill. And I kept my word. I got that job, I bought my clothing, and I helped her pay her phone bill. But it also was establishing in me a work ethic. So I had the work ethic since I was 14, and then it was about building on that work ethic. So I caught a real, so remember how I told you they said, we like your resume, we want you to come in. Today, I understand that to be an informational interview. 20-something years ago, when I was just out there trying to figure out where to go, I was just like, what are you talking about? Why do you want to talk to me? So if anyone takes anything away from this, like, informational interviews are really important.
That's one of the next things I wanted to ask you. What would be your advice to young people that's coming into the field?
Yeah.
How would they get started, and a lot of times you hear that word no.
Yeah, and that is because the reality is a lot of people are selfish. They're gatekeepers. They have preference on who they want to help and why they want to help. But there is still a pathway. And I would suggest young people to create accounts on LinkedIn. I have so many people who reach out to me and just say, I just need 10 minutes. Can you just help me? Could you talk with me? Can you look at my resume? Can you forward it? And this is what led me to write the book, as we're going to talk about.
All right. Tell
Right?
me about this book, because I saw it on, where was I? I was on Instagram, or no, I was on LinkedIn.
Got it.
As a matter
Got
of
it.
fact, I was
Yeah.
on LinkedIn and I saw the book.
Yeah.
And I was saying, I hope Pat brings the book.
Yes, yes. So I'm actually waiting for the book to arrive. It's going to be here in 2 weeks, and then I'm going to get these, and you're going to definitely have an autographed signed copy. So no worries on that. So
Tell me about the book. Tell me.
So here, so the book was as a result. The book thing has been looming for years. I just want to pull back about 6 years ago, when I was still in radio. I was invited to come and speak at a college. And the person said, Pat, come and speak at the college. It's our media day. And me back then, I had been doing so much talking. So I'm like, okay, I don't need to prepare. These are young kids. And I didn't prepare. I went out to a concert because that was one of the perks of working in radio. You had all these free concerts. I went out to like this big concert the night before. I was exhausted the next day. And I was like, oh, I did just talking to kids. Let me just go. And so I show up. I'm half tired. I walk into Westchester Community College, and there's probably about 75 to 80 students and the entire faculty. And I'm like, oh, what a day not to be prepared. And so I sat down, and there were two other speakers. And then someone taps me on the shoulder and says, hi, I just want to introduce myself to you. My name is, let's just say her name was Deborah Smith. My name is Deborah Smith. And I drove all the way from Connecticut to see you. So now I'm shrinking like Fred Flintstone because I'm not prepared. I'm exhausted and I got this pressure on me. So I'm like, wow, okay, Pat, you really got to get this together. And so I went up on the podium and I spoke and I did what I did. And after that, a bunch of hands started going up, asking questions, so much so that the chair said, oh, we're going to stop the questions. We got other speakers.
Mm-hmm.
She stopped the questions. The other speakers went. And then after the program was done, I'm excited. And one of the faculty came up to me and said, do you have a book? And I said, no, I'm too lazy. I don't want to do the work. I just want to talk. I need somebody to write it for me. I just want to talk. And he's like, wow, you got a great story. And then what was happening was that I had a line of students waiting to talk to me. So much so that they said, guys, we got to leave this room. We're going to go in the hallway. And the students were lined up.
How did you feel when you saw them lined up?
I didn't understand. And I'm like, wow, this is fantastic. So then in the hallway, as I'm talking, the executive team came to me again and said, I want you to know, we do these events all the time. And this is the first time that we've seen this level of engagement from our student body. Would you consider teaching here? So I said, ha, ha, ha. I'm not a teacher, but that would be great. Like, I laughed it off. And I talked to the students and I left and I felt great. Within 1 month, I get an email from Westchester Community College inviting me to become a professor.
Oh, my God.
I know.
That must have been an amazing feeling to hear those words.
Gosh. And so I'm like, wait, what? This is happening? So I'm like so excited. And now I have to go meet the big person at the school to do the interview. And I have no clue on how to interview to be a professor. I didn't know. So I'm like, I'll just go. I dressed up really nice and I went in. And she's beautiful office. And she goes, I heard so much about your visit. And I just really want to talk to you, And so by the time we finished talking, 2 hours later, I found out about her retirement, her home, her travel plans.
And you had the job.
And she said to me, do you have a few more minutes? I would love for you to fill out paperwork. So I'm like, okay. So she leaves the room. I text the contact who connected me to the whole thing. And I said, hey, I just want you to know I finished the interview. She's getting me paperwork. She texts me back, what? I've been there for multiple years. She's never given anybody paperwork on the first day. And then today, I am still teaching speech and communications at Westchester Community College 5.5 years later. But wait, because this story is only these kind of stories are stories of that God can only make happen.
True. They're very inspirational.
Right? So now I'm teaching, right? A year ago, last year in 2024, we have a relationship with St. John's at our job. And so one of the professors said, "Hey, Pat, can you come in and speak to our students?" And I said, "Sure, I'd love to." And I go in there and I speak, did what I did. Do you believe the same exact thing happened?
I do.
The dean, the chair came to me and said, "Do you have your master's? Because I would love to talk to you about teaching a course here." And I said, "I do." And she says, "Yeah, I'm going to follow up." Today, I teach 2 courses at St. John's simultaneously while teaching at Westchester Community College. That is not something that I could have designed. That is a gift from God,
Sure.
creating like these unique pathways, not for Pat to associate with the brands, but for Pat to use her knowledge and her experience to push it out to the younger generation.
There's different roads that you had to walk,
That's correct.
and everybody has
Yeah.
to do that.
And so as a result of all of this outreach and output, and I have so many people who want to talk and not just young people, adults, men, everything. I said, and last year I'm like, I think it's time. Let me try my hand at a self-published book, just to give a little bit of the journey of what I've been through. How did I do it while working in fear? Some of the barriers, how I overcame it, some of the self-reflection and how I had to get myself together, but also the undergirding of awakening the potential, the limitless potential that you have within yourself. And so that's what the book is premised on. So I hope people will enjoy it.
I hope so too. You've been listening to Let's Talk About It with me and you, with Pat Robinson here. Pat, how did you make the decisions of when on-air personality came in? Say a Bugsy,
Yeah.
who's been there for like ever. So I know you didn't have to hire him. I
Yeah,
think I
right.
think he's been there for
He's legacy.
He's legacy. But Diane, I had a friend of mine that used to work at
Kiss FM?
yeah, Kiss.
Yeah, Diane King.
Yeah.
Mhm. She was fantastic and still has those beautiful eyes. Oh my gosh, Diana King, if you're listening,
Yes,
we
yes,
love and miss
yeah,
you.
yeah.
So again, some of these people were legacies. So I didn't partake in hiring the legacy ones. I was just very fortunate to work with them.
Mhm.
But some of the newer on-air personalities that have come over probably the last 7 to 10 years, and it wasn't a whole lot of movement in hiring
That's
because
true.
those on-air positions,
Mm-mm,
they're
you got
gold.
it. The people would die. I remember when I was in broadcasting school and I met Johnny Allen. And
Yeah.
I said, "Damn, how do you get these jobs? I guess you're gonna have to die, Johnny."
And they don't
They don't.
it's like, why would you walk away from something that you love,
I
you
know.
connect, you can talk, it's an ideal play. Getting in the radio station, working in the environment is
Phenomenal.
Listen, my plans was to retire there.
I hear.
The only reason I left is because the organization got sold from the parent company to another investor.
Yeah.
And so things were changing and it was time to exit. But had that not happened,
You would still been there.
I've still been there.
I hear.
Probably as the GM right now. Promise you that.
I love that. Tell me a little bit about your show on 94.7 The Block. Tell me
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
What type of job? What do you do?
Yeah.
I know you interview people on Sunday mornings.
Mhm.
I listen to you.
Yeah. And so if people are wondering, well, you were behind the scenes as an executive, how did you get on air?
That's-
Right? The switch there was after I decided to leave the radio station in 2021. It was time to go to my next part of my career. And that was very scary because, in my 50s, I've been somewhere for 20 something years. I haven't been anywhere else. And I'm leaving what I love to do. And now I'm going into potentially nonprofit and no avenue to media was a really hard decision for me to make.
Okay.
And I said to God, I'm like, God, it's time for me to go. I'm walking away from all of this. I really don't want to, but I have to. And I'm just going to trust you and just do my job and I'll just take it easy and relax. And so I was able to find this wonderful job at Greater Jamaica Development Corporation. And, it was nonprofit, so completely different from the fast pace. And I said, well, it's close to home. It's a good organization doing fantastic work. And as soon as I took that job, I received the call from Skip Dillard, who I worked with at MS, who then transitioned to Odyssey. And he had this brand new position, and this brand new station was opening up. And he says, Pat, I am going to put on a public affairs show, and I was considering offering you, would you be interested? And I'm like, me? I have not done any on-air work. What are you talking? He's like, no, hold on. You've been doing this community work for years.
So you're used to talking.
He's like, you're engaged. You know where it's at. You know what's happening. You can do this. So he gave me the shot. Where he gave me a half hour simultaneously at the same time that I got hired at Greater Jamaica. So I just took a new job. So I had to go to my new boss and say, hey, this other opportunity, it's not going to conflict. Are you okay with it? Mm-hmm. So there, again, here's God again, opening up these pathways. And Justin Rogers was like, that's great. And no, it should be fine. And I said, I assure you will not conflict. And so I took this half hour job, and I never been on the mic. So I was very nervous the first year. And then over time, I started to get used to it. And the premise of the show was the half hour was dedicated to talking to community leaders, business leaders, matters of the public, right, that would reach the tri-state. So I was doing the half hour for like a whole year and a half. And then last year in September, I get a phone call from Skip. It says, hey, Pat, I want to talk to you about something. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I want to tell you and see if you are interested in it, but we want to move your show to be an hour, from a half hour to an hour. And then we're going to put the show on 4 stations. I almost fell to the ground, and this lace front almost came off.
Oh my God, that's awesome, Pat. I love it. I love when a story is good, and your story is excellent. It's so inspirational.
Right, all of these, I'm like, this ain't nothing but God.
It is.
It really, I can't take credit. This ain't nothing but blessings from God. And I always acknowledge that.
This was for you.
This was for me. And I'm like, 4 state. He's like, yeah. So it's going to be on 94.7, 102.7, WFAN, and WCBS. Big, broader audience, 1 hour talk format. Are you interested? Yeah. So I've been doing that. So the show has evolved to an hour. And I am having the time of my life.
Did you learn to do the board work?
So interesting enough, I have a space in Queens where I can tape, where it's a little bit less modified than an actual radio station.
Oh, okay.
But when I do go into Manhattan, like, they're there, but I am not the board person. I am the talent. I don't do all that. Did I act bougie?
Yes,
I'm the talent.
Yes,
I don't do all that.
Yes, you did, because when I worked years ago at WWRL,
you had to learn the board.
I had to learn the board. I still got my certificate that I'm an engineer.
Yeah, and here's the thing: there's value. So if you're listening, there is value. Don't listen to that bougie statement. Learn the board. Learn everything you can, because it will serve purpose.
Yes.
But in this case, I'm so focused on the content, the script, the guest, the story. Uh-huh. So, and especially now in where we are in the United States, where our journalism and our wonderful journalists are being attacked and dethroned out of these platforms and creating their own platforms. There's a sense of responsibility that I feel to tell good stories, positive stories. And I've been doing it, and I love it.
Well, we need to have these type of shows wherein people can get inspiration, because there's a lot of people that's so depressed.
And there's a lot of issues that people just don't think about. Like, I did a show recently on estate planning. In our communities, we're not thinking about as much as we should, or taking action around estate planning. And, when people pass away in homes, and all of this stuff goes into probate, and what's involved, living wills, and wills not done, insurances are lapsed, and beneficiaries can't even get the policies because the beneficiaries ain't there, and the payment, those kind of things.
And you know something, Pat? I was doing a show about a year or so ago, and I did it on when people get old and they have their houses and they get sick. Right. They can't get certain medical attention, like home attendants. They have to pay out of their own pocket. Right. So people don't realize all these different things when they're young.
Right.
That plays a part
That's
in your
right.
life
That's
as long
right.
as you get old.
That's right, right. And so all of these things matter. So I'm at this sweet point of this intersection where, by the grace of God, I'm 55. So I'm right in the sweet spot where I understood what I should have did when I was younger and paid more attention to some financials, but now at a spot where I can see the sides of both, meaning like how the elderly community is being not supported in so many areas, how technology is a barrier. It's supposed to be a tool.
It's a barrier.
It
I'm
is a
telling. It is a bit. It
barrier
is.
to so many things, and how you access services. You can't even go on these unemployment sites. You got to do two-factor authorizations and face IDs, and it's just
It's too
painful.
much. And all these documents that they want. You live a place. Documents get misplaced,
Right.
and you need these documents
Right.
to get these
Right,
services.
the services. And so there's this opportunity. So these are the kind of stories I tell, but I also bring people to the show that can help and offer resources. And so it's really important for me. The first year and a half that I did the show, well, probably the first year, I was so worried about how I sounded and, do you sound good? And then I'm like, you know what, Pat? Do the best you can, prepare, but most importantly, bring the people to the table with the correct information. It's the guests that matter.
It's
so
true.
so when I interview people, I not only look at the bio, I prepare the script. Like, I go in and I'm pulling the information that I would think that would engage the tri-state. And the tri-state is responding. Every show that airs on Sunday, I get DMs, I get messaging from people from Connecticut. Hey, I was listening to you in the diner in Manhattan. Can you send me this information? Great show. So people are starting to recognize the platform, which is great. And then I have a lot of people. At first, I had to do a lot of outreach to try to get guests. Now I'm getting like just guests kind of flooding in from places that I didn't even know, but really good caliber guests. And it's important for me to talk about universal subjects. Although my lens is in the Black and brown community, it's my lived experience. I'm always going to be near and dear to that, but also covering universal experiences.
I love what you do, Pat, because years ago, WLIB,
Yes.
WWRL,
Yep.
those stations gave information
That's right.
out to us on Sundays.
Right.
And you're right there on Sunday.
That's right. And
It's
so
wonderful.
right. And so, the good part is that, when you work in radio, you keep your radio comrades. So even on WBLS, and my comrade is over there for team holding it down. And, some of what I do, I'm so blessed because I had the opportunity not only to work in MS Communicate, but I worked with the greats. I'm talking about Bob Slade, Bob Pickett. I was in them rooms. Bob Slade would come to my office every day and sit down and lecture me on what I'm supposed to be doing and how I'm supposed to be moving myself forward and what his expectation was of me. And so I hold those conversations and those moments very, very sincere. And I know that if they were here today, how serious this microphone and this journalism and this information pathway to the community is.
Yeah, we're
important.
losing a lot of our people that was very strong in the communications.
Yeah.
Very strong.
So I am not nowhere near the level of a Joanne Reed or these amazing people who I look up to, Cheryl Wills, all of these fantastic people.
Oh, Cheryl Wills?
Yeah.
You love Cheryl. That's my girl.
Yeah,
That's
love
my
her.
girl.
Love her, right? But I have a place. And so the place that God has put me in, I'm going to continue to evolve it and continue to feed it and grow it. And it's helping me, too, to have a better perspective of what's going on. Like when I'm outside now, I pay attention to a lot of things. I'm listening to the news. I'm trying to understand what's changing. And it also helps me to have bigger conversations with people when I have to advocate for things.
I want to ask you one last question because I know your time is very important. What haven't you done that you would like to do?
I had manifested that I told God, I want to be able to sign checks. And he made it so that in the position that I'm in, which is just fantastic, I reflect is that in Greater Jamaica, I'm able to sign checks. So that's a blessing. So that's something that manifested. What is it that I've done? So I've been speaking to God about, I know one day I'm going to be on a stadium, and I'm going to be holding court and talking in front of people. So that's one thing. But I also want to be able to access capital of my own because I'm a firm believer, like I want to build some things. Like I feel like in Queens, especially, we have all of these great names and all of this great legacy and history, but we don't have like a multimedia studio.
No, we don't.
People come in, they tape movies in our neighborhoods and they farm it out to millions and they're making millions of dollars and they don't come back and reinvest.
I wanted to do just that myself, to be able to do that. I know like Power is being filmed.
Shreveport, right?
Yeah.
But Power was filmed in Queens, but what I'm saying is there's no there should be a hub for our young people to come in and do the filming, the engineering, and learn it right here. So if there was one thing I wanted to do, that's one thing. And then the second thing is when I have enough capital, I want to buy a load of computers and laptops and work my way around multiple boroughs and really get them in children's hands.
Okay. That sounds wonderful. Hey, listen, audience, we've been listening to Pat Robinson from the block,
Yes.
and let's talk about it with me and you. Thank you so much for being on our show.